On today's episode of the Wild Party Podcast, we start with a question. What if doing good didn't have to be so complicated? I chat with Andy Choi, founder and CEO of Do Good. And in this conversation, we go deep into what it really takes to build impact in the real world. From the hidden challenges of starting and running a nonprofit to the idea that doing good should actually be sustainable, scalable, and yes, even profitable. We talk about the concept of profit with purpose, why the nonprofit system is more broken than most people realize, and how Andy and his team is building a model that removes the barriers so more people can take action on the ideas that matter to them. So, if you've ever had the desire to make a difference or build a business that stands for something bigger, this episode is going to open your eyes in a whole new way. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stefanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Okay, before we dive in, I want to start with a simple idea that's been coming up more and more in conversations with founders, especially on this podcast. And that is, there's a real shift from just building a successful business to building a really meaningful one. Now, today's consumers are paying attention. You guys know this, and they want to know what a brand stands for, how it shows up in the world, and whether it's actually walking the talk when it comes to impact. So, that's exactly what today's guest is going to help us figure out today. Andy Choi is the founder and CEO of Do Good, a platform designed to help brands integrate giving and social impact directly into their growth strategy. Now, this is not as an afterthought, but as a core part of how they are connecting with customers, building loyalty, and driving revenue. Now, he's working at a really interesting intersection of marketing, sustainability, and ethical commerce, helping brands move beyond performative purpose into something real, measurable, and meaningful. So, we're going to talk today about what it actually looks like to build a business where doing good is part of the model. I mean, it's basically the messaging of this entire podcast, Andy. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Stephanie. Amazing intro. I appreciate that. And I'm so excited because to your point, like it's the whole what we're doing and what you're doing, right? This story and the narrative that your platform is really help like kind of creating this community around is essentially what our execution is, right? So much alignment there. Like, I always say it's always exciting to serve and do good together, right? So this is a do good conversation that I've been very much looking forward to.
Yeah, it was such a natural fit. And I have to say, when I first looked at your website and the model and everything, I actually thought you did something a little bit differently. And I got very excited. And I'll tell you why. Because here's the thing: I actually started my own nonprofit back in 2007. Okay. So I had a group of friends. We got very excited about doing fundraisers, helping women who were dealing with bills as they were battling breast cancer and getting treatment and everything like that. We had a very fun organization called Bust It Foundation with our core event called Bowling for Boobies. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow.
this was all my side gig because I started as a marketer as you. And then one day we had the idea we'll just start our own nonprofit. So
I love that.
okay. Now, I know I don't have to tell you what it means to actually start your own nonprofit
Yeah.
and the quagmire of paperwork that is. So when I was first introduced to Do Good Points, I thought, "Oh my god, they literally like just run nonprofits for businesses so they don't have to start one and they can still do good." So, I know that somehow that works into your messaging, but let's first of all explain exactly what Do Good Points does because I still, as I've said on many shows, I am building a time machine. I
Yeah.
intend to go back and find you to
Yeah.
stop me from my heartache in 2007. Okay,
I
go,
love
Andy. Tell me in a nutshell, what does Do Good Points do?
Yeah. So, well, I think the first clarification I need to make is that Do Good Points, and we have two different sides to our business. Do Good Points is our consumer side. So we have a platform where you can donate, discover organizations and our causes. So that is Do Good Points, which is a loyalty program for doing good and is a consumer site where people can go and donate. Do Good NAS is which is going to be the main focus of our conversation today is our B2B side of our business, which is our core business. And NAS is nonprofit as a service, right? Where we allow for-profit businesses and individuals to spin up a nonprofit overnight. And it starts at $25 a month. I mean, so you've already alluded to the problems, right? Like starting your own nonprofit costs anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 and takes about 6 to 12 months in today's market, right? So it's an incredibly painful and expensive process. And there's a lot of problems and issues. And our goal as a company is to break down the barriers to doing good. And we literally see setting up and maintaining your own nonprofit as a barrier, right? And again, someone like you that you and your group of friends had good intention, had a mission, got fired up, and then you probably got stalled by a bunch of paperwork, and ultimately is a liability, right? So then, how do we really solve that problem and do it in a way that creates access, right? So it's the price of Netflix. You can run your own nonprofit and your own foundation, right?
Okay, seriously, Andy, I have to stop you because I have to go and build that time machine now.
Yeah.
The what you're saying right now speaks to me so, on point because yes, like we were fired up, we were gonna start our own nonprofit, which we did,
Yep.
and we did everything wrong right from the beginning. When we finally met with a lawyer, they were just like, "You don't have any kind of insurance for your
Yeah.
officers and board." We're like, "What are you talking about?" And they're just like, "Please stop touching anything."
Yeah.
So we were able to like start piecing it together, but you're right, it was just this whole hassle of like, we really wanted to do something good in the world and then we're like, oh, it's all paperwork. It's all paperwork. And unfortunately for me, I am one of those people that when I find a string, I'll keep
Yeah.
pulling it. So
Yeah.
I just kept getting deeper and deeper into that. So what you're saying now to me is like, you guys would have taken all of that off my plate. But
Yep.
like, Stephanie, you want to do Busted Foundation Bowling for Boobies, no profit. Here's your nonprofit standing. You go do your events. Is that what you're telling me, Andy?
Exactly. I mean,
Jesus. Oh,
that's majority of our clients come to us and be like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I knew it about you earlier." But also, so NAS is essentially a nonprofit operating system. So a lot of our clients are actual 501(c)(3)s that don't want to deal with the paperwork and the headache as well, right? Because setting up your nonprofit, that's just step one. That's
hmm
that's hurdle number one. Maintaining it, which is like state, federal, legal filings, as well as your tax filings, your 990s that need to happen every year. It's a big liability you're taking on. It's not a badge that you get once and that's it. You have to pay and file all the amount of paperwork every year. And some states are require a lot more than others, especially California and New York, which are very, very stringent. And then you're also like, you're meant to get audited. Nonprofits get audited all the time, right? So you're taking on this huge liability. And the other thing that people don't realize that we really educate them on is winding down a nonprofit, like, is more difficult than setting one up. Right? Like they don't realize that because it's such a liability. You can't just walk away from it. It's a legal entity. with, and it's tied to the IRS. The IRS does not allow you to walk away from anything without properly, winding it down, going through all of the protocols and paperwork and whatnot, right? So it's like we really see that as an issue and a problem because, to your point, Stephanie, like the vast majority of nonprofits in the United States really don't need a 501(c)(3). So, just to share some quick stats, there are about 1.8 million registered nonprofits today in the United States. About 60 to 70% operate under $50,000 or less. I mean, and just the setup cost can cost $2 to $10,000. Like, it's really not necessary to have a 501(c)(3) because then you have to think about the maintenance costs, the liability. So that's the problem that we're really trying to solve. But it's also for organizations that do exist, how do we make the paperwork and the operations on the back end like a lot more streamlined and cost efficient?
Yeah, again, I mean, you're speaking my language. I went through all of that. The quagmire of paperwork that you have to go through, just on a daily basis, and then figuring out along the way, I have to file this, I have to do that, I have to make sure I'm in compliance for this, that, and the other thing. Um, and learning crazy stuff like when we were having events in LA, and I don't know if this is other places, that if you have a raffle, that's actually considered gambling. And we had to file with the police department, which was I was like, what are you talking about? And of course, I would often get, advice from very well meaning friends saying, don't worry about it. Nobody does any of that. And I'm like, yeah, except for the person who then gets caught, right? So, like I had already said, I am the person that keeps pulling the string. And you're right. When we finally decided to end the nonprofit to finally, it had run its life cycle. There was so much paperwork just to literally end that because I was gonna end it the right way because my fear was always, "Hey, I don't want it just out there in the ecosystem, and then for some reason, I don't know, my name or this business name gets used in a way it shouldn't, and then I'm liable for that." So, it sounds like you're, like, fixing all of those problems. So, Andy, let take me back to the beginning because you know what? I was going through your LinkedIn earlier, and you've just had, like, an entire career of doing good, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, I had your degrees in sociology, correct?
Correct. Organizational studies. Yep.
Right, and then you had a triple major, which I can't even remember all the things that you majored in, but you are definitely like me. You are a pull the string person. Like, "Oh, I wonder if I can figure this out." So take me back as like you started in the marketing side. When did you start seeing the need for this? And then how did you make that leap into, I think that I could create this platform that would make it easier for people like Stephanie?
Yeah. Right. Well, again, thank you for that awesome intro. Like, I mean, it's where do I start, right? I want to preface everything by saying that like I'm a capitalist, right? And I know that's kind of a weird statement to make, but in the world of doing good, like, I think there's this kind of misconception of like, oh, because you want to do good that you can't thrive and be successful, right? Like, and I think that was my personal journey and my biggest struggle because I started my first company when I was 14. I've had about 7 different startups since then. Some were successful, some were really difficult, expensive learning experiences. But I always tell people like I like nice things. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, right? And I now live in New York City. These are incredibly expensive places to be, right? Like I like to go out and eat, but now that I want to do good, I don't need to be poor and suffer, right? Like I think long gone are the days where it's like you're either a tree hugger that's poor and starving or you're like a wolf of Wall Street, right? Like I think that line is and I think it necessarily is like we're kind of seeing the market shift. And I want to be an advocate in kind of really pushing that narrative and that market shift because I believe in what we call profit with purpose, right? Like I believe that I should be able to pay my rent and thrive and do good, right? Like and where capitalism is not a means to an end and it's not a means to exploit people, but to drive human flourishing. Right? Like that's what I believe when I say I'm a capitalist. Like I believe that capitalism was always meant to create a marketplace that enabled and uplifted humanity and human flourishing, right? Where we're supposed to build products that serve humanity at a fair and good price, right? And that for products that are good quality, right? Like not things that are meant to break down, and so we can exploit people. All of that said, so that's kind of set me on this journey, right? As an entrepreneur that always has always loved building companies. I had a personal conviction about 7 years ago, which is when I founded this company. It was like, for me, faith is a huge part. Like it's the foundation of my life, and I had a conviction. My faith beliefs was like, hey, God was asking me, it's like what you spend your time and energy on should reflect your values, which is to love God and love people, right? And I was like, all right, well, I spent all my time working. I spent all my time building companies because it's not so much money was a key aspect of it, but it was kind of how do I create something of value in the marketplace, and that's where profit with purpose, like really, like I started wrestling with that idea. What does that look like? How do I serve, nonprofit industry obviously helps and serves humanity, but it's incredibly broken. It's like the word nonprofit is like the opposite of capitalism, right? But I'm like, how are you supposed to solve the biggest problems in the world and not have any money and resources to do it? Right? Like you look at nonprofit salaries, which are dismal and like just why it's like a teacher's salary. It's like, what are like our markets are not reflective of the values, right? And how do we kind of go about resetting that? All right. I know that's kind of a lot. Let me pause there.
No, you're exactly right with all that, and let me tell you, when we first started out, I was one of those people that thought, "Oh, nonprofit, everybody's gonna give us everything for free." I did. I went in like that, and then people are like, "No, if you have an event, you have to pay for the venue." I'm like, "What, you don't just donate it for free?" And I did, I had to learn that whole thing. It's like, "Oh, this is actually a business." And if I wanna retain people that are actually gonna be on staff and do what they should be doing to, like, their highest potential, I have to treat them like employees that are getting paid. Like, it can't just be people doing favors all the time. And that was a huge stumbling block for us in the beginning was just we would have, part of our friend circle, people would be like, "Oh, I'll do this and that." And then they didn't. And then I would sit there be holding the ball. Well, like, well, who else is going to do it? I guess I just do everything. So it was one of those things where because we didn't really have a business infrastructure, I really feel like it just stunted what this vision could have been. I had this very grand vision to raise all of this money that we would then literally give out like Oprah to these women that are, going through breast cancer treatment to help them pay those residual bills, right? As their co-pays, childcare, gas and gas now, right? Um, but then I was like, oh, it doesn't really work that way. So everything you're saying, like I lived and I know exactly how that feels on a really, really core level of like, wow, it's like I really wanted to do all this stuff, but I didn't know how to pull it together. And for all the books that are out there, how to start your own nonprofit, they don't really tell you the day to day that this is a business. You treat it like a business. And then it will grow. And like you know what? I totally believe in capitalism. I believe because for me, capitalism is freedom. People to have the freedom of creativity and ideas to bring stuff into existence that wasn't there before. So if you're always feeling like, no, I can only do it the only way that it's always been done, then, there's no new ideas for making it better. So I get exactly what you're saying. So when you were in your career, because you had a couple of different career paths that you were doing, when did you start deciding that, okay, so I have this idea, purpose, what did you call it? Passion for purpose. What was it?
Profit with purpose.
Profit with me,
Yeah.
passion with purpose.
That's
Profit with
great.
purpose then. How did then that become into the evolution of you starting this company? And then I want you to explain to me how does this work that a company can come in and
Yeah.
then be able to take part as part of this network? Like Stephanie 2026 says, I want to do Busted Foundation
Yeah.
Bowling for Boobies. How did we do that? Because by the way, I've secretly been over the years rebuying all of my real estate and my URLs, which I had
Oh,
listen,
good.
when we were at the end of our life cycle, I know I'm segueing here, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but we were at the end of our life cycle, what I wanted to do because we still had our, intellectual assets for our events and everything, because
Man,
we had trademarked everything, which is a whole whole 'nother thing, me learning about trademarks. So I did just, I gave them to this other nonprofit that I thought was gonna do similar work to what we did, and they literally did nothing with it.
man.
So nobody ever did a bowling for boobies again. So
Yeah.
secretly, I've been rebuying everything because I think I'm gonna do it again,
Oh,
and I
good.
think this time you're gonna help me. Okay,
Oh, good.
Andy, go. Let's go back here. How then did you start creating this business? And then tell me what it looks like for Stephanie 2026 to come to you and say, "We're relaunching Bowling for Boobies, go."
Yeah, high level. I mean, we started 7 years ago, and it really was me getting a crash course on the nonprofit industry, right?
Mhm,
I've never worked in a nonprofit industry. I've always been indirectly involved, whether it's through my family or, sitting on the board of a local church plant in the Bay Area that I was a part of. But I've never worked directly in a nonprofit. And again, Stephanie, you having been in it, you know the mess of it, but like it was just a really tough learning experience, right? Really understanding the pains, the systemic problems, to just like the basic economics, right? Like it's an entire ecosystem and market that is separate from the capitalistic market. And it's given these golden handcuffs. Again, you're meant to not be profitable. But, everything you describe is what it is a business, and we call it the business of doing good. And the business of doing good is very, very broken, right? From the policy levels to the way it runs. And without going into all the details, but we're a tech company, so everything is data driven. This is not just me making blanketed statements. Like, look at giving has been fixed at 2% GDP the last 40 plus years that has been tracked. You look at income and salary levels of executive directors. You look at the failure rates of nonprofits. You look at the default rates of nonprofits. Again, whoever wants to do your own research, chat GPT it, whatever, right? Like it's a very broken system. So then long story short, in our journey and my kind of learning process is like I've always entered into this space as a way to solve big problems, like, systemic problems, right? I, again, having the experience that I have in the startup world and just as an entrepreneur was never to come in here and be like, oh yeah, it's like this self-righteous journey of like, I'm going to just volunteer every day. It was never that. It was always like, okay, how do we really kind of systemically look at and solve problems at a big scale? Where we landed at when from the B2B side of our business was really the kind of the access point of nonprofits. Everything comes down to money, right? Like we live in, again, a capitalistic society. Our like it evolves around money. Whether if you're going to do a fundraiser, to your point, Stephanie, like you have to pay for a venue that you can house the fundraiser, right? So when I talk about money, I mean it's just the economic system we live in. And when we talk about access, what do you need? You need to be able to fundraise. But you also need to have status to give tax deductible donations, right? So the access point was the first thing that we were really looking to solve. All right. So then it's like if Stephanie has this great idea, she's driven, she's passionate. How do we enable and empower you to do that? And hurdle number one is being able to receive a tax deductible donation, having an entity, a legal entity, in order to operate to do the mission that you've been called to do. Right. So that was kind of the entire basis and genesis of the Do Good NAS, nonprofit as a service. It's like really figuring out that kind of access point problem first. So that's kind of problem number one that we're solving for. Does can I yeah, does that make sense? Should I elaborate a little bit more on that or
Oh, yeah. Oh, you make complete sense to me, like I said, because I've already been through that grinder of doing this all myself. So, yeah, keep explaining it to people or to our audience so they understand, like, what actually is involved in that. Because all of that I had to figure out on my own, Andy, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I think it directly led to my drinking problem. Because I was so stressed out all the time. So not coincidentally, when we started tying up our nonprofit is also when I quit drinking, which was in 2013. But I mean, that's how stressed out I was because of everything you're talking about. We had these grand ideas to do this good, but it was just getting caught up in the day to day of figuring out like how do you do it legally? Just beyond like having your 501(c)(3) status, there's just so much that you need to know. And you're right. It's like in the nonprofit sector, the thought is like, oh, it's the nonprofit. You shouldn't be making money. You shouldn't have a salary. For the first couple of years, I didn't even get paid anything myself. And then finally, as we started hiring a consultant, they're like, no, you're the CEO, the founder, and you're actually doing most of the work. Like you should be paid. And I was like, oh, people in nonprofits get paid. And up until that point, I was just fitting that into my daily workday, and I was so stressed out, like, all the time. I think I was a totally different person back then, I swear to God. And people from the outside would think, "Oh, you're doing all this good," but I was so stressed out because I had to deal with all that stuff that I didn't know how to deal with. So, yes, keep elaborating on that because I don't want people to go through what I went through. I want them to know you can have this idea, and now that there's systems like yours that, like, "Hey, we take that back end, we run it for you, and then you just run with your idea."
Yeah. So let me go into specifics then on the access and what we call formation, right? So the access is again the beginning part when someone has an idea like, hey, I'm going to start this women's group or this men's group or whatever it is, or an ocean cleanup, right? Like me and my friends are going to do this. Amazing, right? That's when I think that's the most critical stage, which is where intention and access like introvert, right? Like, and because I always say this, like, so many people have good intention, but very few people take action, right? So when that action, like, that moment in life when that really happens, when something breaks your heart or, like enough is enough, whatever it might be, that motivating factor, it's like, what we want to create is the path of least resistance, right? Because it's hard enough to do good, right? Like, how do we make that easier? So access is really, being able to receive tax deductible donations. So maybe you might have a wealthy friend or someone that's really passionate and believes in what you're doing, says, hey, I want to support this mission that you're going to go on, but I need to receive a tax deductible donation, right? Which are, again, economic incentives, right? You want to be able to offer that right away. In our system, you can essentially get started overnight. Like in less than 48 hours, you can receive a tax deductible donation through what the key mechanism for access is called fiscal sponsorship, which is a very confusing sounding word, but it's the legal term when one 501c3 nonprofit extends its 501c3 status to a third party project, quote unquote project or person, in order for their mission to have a nonprofit umbrella. So we've taken this product that's been around and the government recognizes it, and we've productized it and made it available. And that's one offering in the NAS program, right? But not only that, we also handle the 501c3 filings and all of those other things. But again, the vast majority of projects, quote unquote projects, don't need their own 501c3 status, right? They just need to be sponsored, right? So that way you don't have to deal with all of the headache and trouble. And all of this is available for $25 a month. And it starts at 5% of donations processed and goes down, because this is where all the legal work and all of the paperwork happens, right? Because as the NAS program, as a NAS client, it's your project, whatever, Stefanie Foundation, powered by Do Good. We are the back end nonprofit and entity that's kind of overseeing all of the legal requirements, all of the impact requirements, all of the headache of kind of the running the nonprofit. We handle all of that. And what we want you to do is focus on the mission, right? What you're best at, like activating and kind of the fundraisers, all of those other things that come with driving that mission forward. So that's where really the access point is what we're solving for. Any questions in regards to that?
Yeah, I have a quick question about that. So you were saying essentially you operate as this umbrella organization, like sharing your nonprofit status. I thought that in order for an organization to do that, whatever groups that were under that umbrella had to be on a similar mission. Like it all had to be kind of like if you were all doing child education, then it could be all under the same umbrella. Is that not true? Like you
And
can
it,
have
yes.
different.
Yeah. So fiscal sponsorship is around, and the traditional ways of fiscal sponsorship has all of these kind of different requirements. The way we approach it is very different. And this is where the innovation aspect happens. Where our entire basis of being around is to provide this service, right? Is the NAS service. So then our goal is to activate new entities. So we are cause agnostic. And the way our backend structure is that we have multiple different nonprofits, right? And we have multiple entities that's based on kind of think of us as like the utility belt for anything and everything doing good or nonprofit. based on what you need, whether it's donation processing, a particular cause area, we're going to use different products and services and vehicles in order to service and make sure that your project has all of the legal and liability covering that it needs to activate quickly. So that's the service and the technology side of our business that we're really solving for, right? But to your point, traditional physical sponsorship, for example, has like a 3 to 5 year agreement. It costs about 15, well, 10 to 15%. And again, people could do their own due diligence, like look it up. We essentially productize that. It's $25 a month, and our rate starts at 5%. We're way below, less than the industry average because we're looking for scale and we're looking to utilize technology as a way to solve a lot of the legal kind of liabilities and products and headaches. By utilizing technology, we can drive down costs, we can drive up legal guardrails, right, and offset a lot of the liabilities.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because, like I said, I knew that they somehow had to be tied into it, so it would make sense then. So you're able then within your organization that you have several different nonprofit statuses that essentially people could come in and depending on what they were doing, they would be eligible to be under that specific umbrella. Okay, I understand that point. So, I also saw on your website that you're also offering other services like the marketing and things like that. So just beyond the nonprofit status, like what else happens if when Stefanie 2026 comes and says, Andy, we're relaunching, this is what we did in the past, and okay, what else are you going to do? Because let me tell you, back in when we started, actually, we started our first event in 2004. Okay, so this was before social media. This was all just personal cell phones. If you had a cell phone, no, we were literally just calling people on the phone still. And then if people were still using email, and it's such a new world now. So what else is involved within your system? As far as like giving me access to all the goodies that you need now, email lists, social media, marketing, donation platforms. What else is under your hood that would be available to someone?
Yeah, great question. And perfect segue into the formation aspect of it, right? Because access is just entry, right? The formation is the real meat and like bread and butter of everything, right? It's the journey to get to and fulfill your mission, right? And that is what we're really focused in on, right? So access again is kind of our wedge, is the entry point, but the formation aspect of it, because again, at the end of the day, what we call it profit with purpose. You need to be profitable. The business of doing good needs to be successful in order for you to achieve and successfully deliver on your mission, which is your impact, right? So if it's a matter of planting trees, you need to be able to pay to plant the actual trees, right? Like you need to be able, and how many trees can you plant, right? Like over the course of a year, 10 years, 20 years, right? Like, and that is determined by the success of your business. And again, profit with purpose. So our customer profiles are both businesses and individuals. When it comes to businesses, we look at brands and businesses. It's like, how do you actually incorporate doing good as a driving engine for growth and revenue, not a charity handout, right? A charity handout is like, oh, once a year during Thanksgiving or Christmas, I'm going to write a check and I get a tax deductible donation. Those are great. But actually, how do you build it into the business? Where I use Tom's as an example a lot, where it's like buy a pair of shoes, give away a pair of shoes, right? Where every Parker does it with eyeglasses, for every pair of glasses people purchase on their site or through their platform, they give away a pair of glasses. So they've literally driven into it reciprocity and their impact into the success of their business, profit with purpose, right? Like it's this idea of like, how do you actually use it as a growth mechanism? And I'm sure you talk about this a lot on this podcast, where it's like 78% of Gen Z and millennials say that they do not want to associate themselves with a brand that does not reflect their values. They're willing to pay more money for a product or a service that reflects some type of social impact. All of the data already shows it. These aren't blanketed statements. Like the market's already moving in that direction. So then our NAS program is like, we really work with businesses and brands to formulate what does success look like? What does impact, self-sustaining impact look like? So if it's an app, we worked with a fintech app that has like for every app download, cost, which is usually a marketing budget for cost per download, they donate X amount of dollars to financial literacy nonprofits. So again, their success is creating direct impact, right? So those are the formation aspects of it. When it comes to individuals, it's the same thing, but we also have what's called our network for good products and services, which you already mentioned, where we're really allowing whether it's businesses or individuals to go from 0 to 1, right? So like you, Stephanie, you're a perfect example of like, oh my gosh, I had all these ideas, like we're driven, but like all of these roadblocks. What we want to provide is like whether it's content service, marketing, media service, even venue discounts. How do you take advantage of the nonprofit world, which are nonprofit discounts for products and services to get you to a point where you can succeed? Again, the formation aspect of it is like really creating the business side of doing good is like content. Like, how do I get so we have like a content engine service that's like
Hmm.
25 social media posts, a newsletter, basic CRM setup, and it's like normally $1,900 to $2,400 a month through an agency partner that we have. And together with this agency partner, Content Bacon, we created something that's $600 a month that's only available to nonprofits and NAS clients. It's like,
Hmm.
how do we help? How do we get the for-profit market to come in and offer products and services at a discounted rate that really allow nonprofits to succeed and grow, but it's done in a way that it's meant for formation, not just, oh, I'm going to do this for you one time. And then to your point, like you have plenty of people that wish well or say they're going to volunteer, do all these things. But again, life happens, right? People are busy, right? So how do we solve for those problems?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just sitting
Yeah.
here laughing because, oh my goodness, my volunteers, they really did want to help, but gosh darn it. Not a lot of self-starters is all I'm just saying, really had to be handheld, and, I'm very very forceful when I want something done. I've been called a bulldozer in my life. Anyway, but with that said, so if I was a business coming to you, and I wasn't trying to start my own profit, but I was a non-business that did want to start having some charitable outreach, and I'll let you know, I'm actually working with a business right now on their marketing. And part of the thing they've tasked me with is starting to build what they're considering their charitable outreach. Because I'm telling you right now, Indy, you and I are getting on the phone after this because I think you're about to solve all my problems. But with that said, so if I were to come to you with this business and they have this idea of the sector that they want to be in, specifically, they would like to help families that are dealing with family members that have Alzheimer's. Um, if we came to you then, do you actually help us build that strategy of what that looks like and then actually help us like find the let's say the outreach that it happens, maybe that's partnering with the existing nonprofits that are out there, like how does that all work? Because it's like and one of the things that I did find back in the day and even now, when people are making their donations, they were very much concerned that the donation was going to do exactly what we said it was going to do. So it wasn't just like, oh, it's for breast cancer. Well, what does that mean? So we were really clear on our messaging that, hey, it goes directly to women to help them pay their bills. But when a company comes to you, then how do you make that, I think, connection so that they are able to make their dollars do exactly what they wanted it to and not what I'd like to just be put in like the nonprofit basket of who knows where that money goes. Like every time I hear the words like breast cancer research, well, what does that mean? Like that's such a broad term. And the people that I was working with, like they really wanted to know specifically not only who we were helping, but what areas, what kind of financial disbursement. They were really interested in the numbers. So do you put all of that information together? Like, okay, so I come to you with my client, we want to help, people in the Alzheimer's area. What can you do for that?
Yeah. So the answer is yes to all of that. And I'll kind of contextualize it. And let's just use this as kind of a case study, right? So it's a business that, is adjacent or has direct ties to Alzheimer, right? Like one, I would probably recommend like, hey, you should probably have your own nonprofit division that is focused on impact, cause marketing and impact to service this kind of cause, like this Alzheimer like initiative that you have, because it's going to cost money, time, and resources to activate that program, whether that's hiring consultants or, staff members to run that programming. That can happen through their nonprofit arm. And this is very common. So if you look at businesses like Google, Google has google.org, Microsoft has Microsoft Foundations. A lot of these kind of like enterprise companies have their own nonprofit arm. And it's obviously expensive and a liability to maintain it. So a lot of SMB businesses do not have that. But there are big tax incentives that we think should be available to everybody, including small and medium-sized businesses, right? So our program allows that to happen, right? So the way that Google sets up, Microsoft sets up, we can allow your customer, your client, even though they're not this multi-billion dollar company, to be able to have this kind of same setup and all of the tax advantages. Again, we live in a capitalistic society. The more we can incentivize doing good, the better for the longevity and the investment of the program. So that is again, the access point. We'll look at what is the structure, what are the goals, and we'll make recommendations on like, okay, this is the best way to do it. Because sometimes setting up your own 501(c)(3) is the best way, or setting up just a separate marketing budget, whatever it is. So we look at that point first. And then from that structure, going back to your point of like kind of formation, like accounting and all of these other requirements, those are budgeting and legal impact requirements. Those are the basics. We always say we operate from a level of like we need to be ready for an audit any given day of the week. Right. So then like when money comes in, money goes out, what it's allocated for, like those are the things that the IRS care about. And those are the things that are really, it's kind of annoying for businesses or individuals to manage and handle. And that's where NAS and the nonprofit operating system really serves to meet all of those legal requirements from a transparency standpoint, from an impact standpoint, but also from a strategy standpoint. Because based on that strategy, again, the business of doing good is like, all right, what are the costs? What are the investments? What are the ins and outs of income that need to happen in order for this project, quote unquote, project to succeed? Right. So we really walk along. This is not a transactional business. Our success is directly tied to the mission and the project's success. Right. So we walk along, you're assigned account manager that is like, hey, all right, these are the things that we want to do. But how do we actually set that up? Right. Because Stephanie, you've done this in the past. If you're going to do it again, we have a plan, but everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face, right? Like especially with a nonprofit too, it's like, we don't know if you're starting a new nonprofit, you'll have an idea and a plan, but it might not look the same 3 or 6 months down the line. How do you make those adjustments? How do you pivot? Just like a business does and a startup does to succeed, how do we help optimize that and walk and journey along with you in the formation aspect of it, right? Because using that example of planting trees, if I started planting trees in high school and I did that for 10 years, it's going to look very different, right? Like maybe 2, 6 years, 10 years down the line. What we want to do is have that flexibility and that nimbleness to be able to grow with you, have these different utilities and tools. Maybe in the beginning, you went under fiscal sponsorship. Maybe 6 years down the line, you become your own 501(c)(3). All of those things, like we walk and journey along in order, again, the mission and the impact is the North Star. That's the guiding thing. Anything else is just how do we support it?
That makes perfect sense, and you're actually just making me get more excited than I wanted to about this whole idea again because, when we finally did, end our foundation, I said I would never do it again, and lo and behold, you come into my life now, and I'm like, "Oh my god, here we go," because he's going to take the heartache part of away from me and, like, let me do the vision. Because let me tell you, there was nothing I loved more than giving out those checks. I mean, I love giving out money, like, more than, like, I don't know, I don't know, everybody must giving out if you have the money, I think it's more fun to give it out. I can't even say it correctly. Andy, it was like the best part of my entire day to give that money to these women. They were so appreciative and I felt so good about it and like just being able to pull all that craziness together. So I think, yes, you and I will be talking because it's not just me. I know there's so many businesses out there that want to move just beyond the marketing spiel of just saying, oh, we'll donate 1% to whatever charity. Like they do want to make it an integrated part of their business like you gave the example of Tom's and things like that. So I think there's just so much future for this. And I'm really love it that there's people like you solving these very hard problems and me from someone from the way back front lines. I know what it's like. And I'm telling you people out there that are listening to this, don't try to start your own nonprofit before talking to Andy. trust me on this. It added years to my life. It gave me a drinking problem. I say that just now. Honestly, stopping drinking was like the best part of my life. But with that said, Andy, now I'm rambling myself. Please tell people where they can find you online. And then you and I, once we hang up, we are setting up our own appointment. So where can they find you online?
Yeah, they can find us on LinkedIn. We do a ton of content. I do a ton of content on LinkedIn, really talking about the business of doing good, what NAS is. So you can find me under Andy Choi on LinkedIn. And again, Do Good and Do Good NAS, nonprofit as a service. We have newsletters, we have resources, but also whether you are a client of ours or not, again, as a nonprofit, our goal is to really just provide you with all of the information and the resources that you need to, again, to do good, right? Like that is the mission, right? So, hopefully our product and service is a solution for a lot of people. But if you are a brand, a business that has been kind of like, hey, I would really love to do this, but but these things or, these economic, like talk to us, right? I'm happy to kind of help guide and figure out a path where, impact is at the core of it, right? And Stephanie, like I love it. Like you described it, like giving away those checks, it
So
feeds your
great.
soul, right? It feeds your soul, and like you don't need to describe it or articulate it. Like I 100% get it. And every one of us, everyone listening on this podcast understand that. We know, I think the biggest thing that we can do as human beings is to serve other people, right? And whether
I
that's
fully
giving a
agree.
check, whether that's planting a tree, whatever that looks like, serve others. And if it's through a path of creating your own nonprofit, doing something amazing, but even just simply like however way you can serve, that's all it is. That's the core essence of doing good, is just serving others, right? So I appreciate you sharing that story. And yeah, we are absolutely going to talk.
I fully agree with you. There is nothing better in this life than to be of service to others. It sounds so cliche sometimes, but man, does it light up your soul when you see that you have alleviated someone else's burden in this world. Sometimes you didn't even realize it was going to make such a big difference, which is even better. But before I let you go, tell me your URL real quickly so people can jump over that. We will have it in the show notes, but also just say it right now. What is your URL for your
It's
website?
right now it's home.dogoodpoints.com. We're updating it. It'll be Do Good NAS very soon, but home.dogoodpoints.com.
Okay, great. We'll make sure we have that in the show notes so people can catch up and really, go to the website, start reading about it, reach out to Andy and his crew. I mean, I couldn't have been more excited when I got your email. Like, you didn't even know, Andy, when you contacted me. You're like, I'm just going to be on this podcast. And I'm sitting back there like, oh my God, we're going to talk about
Love it.
nonprofits. So there you
I love
go.
it. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks to everyone for listening. And yeah, everyone do good.
Thanks for listening to the Wow Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.